Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Quisha. On this channel, I like to do makeup mukbangs and more. Now, today is a makeup day. It is a collection day. I am showing you guys my eyeshadow palette collection. Now, first of all, I'm gonna say this, y'all. I don't want to be judged by how many palettes I have, okay? I was actually a little hesitant about putting this video up because I don't want people to think I'm like showing off, or I don't know, you know what I mean. I don't want people to think I'm just like trying to show off and stuff. But I had a couple of my friends here give me the courage to actually post this video. So I'm going to be showing y'all all of the eyeshadow palettes that I own. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, it's a lot. I don't even know how many I own. So for funsies, I'm going to put a counter at the top of the screen here so I can actually know how many palettes I own, because y'all, I don't know. I felt like I had something else that I was going to say right before this. I have been collecting eyeshadow palettes for over 6 years, so a lot of these I've had for a very long time. I know that makeup expires, but I'm a person that if I spend my hard-earned money on something, I'm gonna use it until they die. So until I start hitting pan, I'm using these palettes. I don't care, okay? They're my palettes. I love them, and that's why I have them. My palette collection is also the reason why I started my collab series, 2 Girls, 1 Palette, is because I wanted to use my palettes. A lot of the times I find myself using the same palette over and over again, and 2 Girls, 1 Palette was just a way for me to not only see what palettes I have in common with a lot of people, but to also get me to actually use my palettes and put them to work and remember why I bought them in the first place. So y'all, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my palette collection. All right, y'all, how y'all doing? Y'all all right? All right, so let's get into this collection. So first off, I'm gonna go with some little mini palettes that I have here. And I will say some of the palettes I have here I haven't even used, but if you see a palette that we have in common and you want to be a part of my 2 Girls, 1 Palette collaboration series, please don't hesitate to hit me up in the comments down below. You can message me on Instagram. My email is also listed in my description box. Any way you want to hit me up and say, hey, I want to be part of 2 Girls, 1 Palette. I have that palette and I want to use it, and you want to be a part of it, just hit me up, y'all. I'm open. Let's get into it. I'm going to start off with some little tiny palettes. The first one I have right here is the Dose of Colors Desi and Katie palette. It's so pretty. Look at this palette, y'all. It's gorgeous. It's so sparkly. It's so pretty. And it's just 4 shadows. And some of them you use with your hands and some of them you just use with a brush. I have used this. Not a lot though. I've only dipped into it a handful of times. It's not really something where I could get a whole look out of this. I mean, you could, but I mean, I need some like matte transition shades and stuff like this. I usually just use this palette when I want to use it as like a topper or like in my inner eye or nose highlight, but it is a very, very pretty palette. And again, this is the, I don't know the official name of this. I just know this is the collaboration with Dose of Colors and Desi and Katie. This palette I have never used before. It looks like I touched one of the shades, but I have never actually used it. This is the collaboration with Makeup Shayla and Maybelline, and this is the City Mini palette. All right, so I'm gonna open it up here. Yeah, as you can tell, I think I pretty much just like swatched this shade right here, but I've never used this palette. It's very pretty. It's a very pretty travel palette. This is something, if you're used to just doing very simple everyday looks and you want something to travel with, this would be the perfect palette for that. Next up, I have this Natasha Denona Mini Holiday Eyeshadow Palette. I don't think I've ever used this palette either. I've had this palette for a very long time and I just haven't used it. I don't know why, but I knew that when I first saw it, I absolutely had to have it. And for what? I don't know, because I have never used it. And I think I've had this palette for like a year or 2. It's very pretty. This was just one of those mini palettes that Natasha Denona has that they sell at Sephora. I believe this was only $25, and I do not own a full-size Natasha Denona palette because they are $130, and y'all, no ma'am. I do eventually want to own one. I think I have my eye on the OG, the Sunset palette. I will probably own that sometime in the future, but in the meantime, in between time, you know, this is a cute little, it's a cute little something. This color down here looks absolutely gorgeous. So pretty. Love this palette. Well, I don't know if I love it. I've never used it, but I love the look of it. Next up, I have this Pur Cosmetics stack. I don't know if y'all remember, but these used to be super popular a few years ago. I can't even unstack it. Yeah, hold on. These are magnetic. I'm trying to roll it out so y'all can see all the shades. All right, I'm just gonna show y'all the shades individually because it's not letting me. It's trying to embarrass me out here. But anyway, this is a Milk Cosmetics stack, and it comes with a tiny little mirror here, and then these are the shades. So this shade is called Rot, and everything is magnetic, so they stick together. Let me see, y'all. They might let me roll them out. Hold on. Oh, y'all letting me roll them? Here is a quick glance at all of the shadows. There's one hiding here in the back. All right, you know what? Cool. Anyway, I'm gonna show y'all all the shadows, and I have used this palette. As you can see, it's dirty. This is a really nice travel palette, especially if you like all matte kind of looks and you want just something nice, you know, that you really don't have to worry about. So this shade is called Rust. This shade is gorgeous, highly pigmented, extremely high performing shadows in these stacks. This one is called Rot. This one is called Antique. This one is called Rubbish. And the last one here is called Classic. This is just a beautiful all matte eyeshadow palette. You have 5 basic matte shades here. If you're just a very simple girl and you don't mind an all matte eye look, I usually take this a lot of the times when I travel because I tend to keep my makeup very simple when I travel, and this is just very convenient. Everything just sticks together. You don't have to worry about losing everything. It's just really, really nice. And they have colorful ones also. Pur Cosmetics is a really nice brand, and these are extremely high performing shadows. I love this little stack here. All right, next up is an honorable mention. I don't know, I wasn't sure if I wanted to put this with my eyeshadow palettes or not. I don't know, but this is the Sephora. This is a face palette, but these can also be used as eyeshadows as well. This is the Sephora Pro face palette, and this is the deep one. I absolutely love this palette. This is really more so of a face palette. You have your highlighters, your contours, your blushes, your bronzers, and stuff like that, but you can also use all of these shades also as eyeshadows, and it's just so pretty. I'm super happy that I got this, and I was even more happy that I caught it on sale because this is originally $60 and I got it for $30, and I'm so happy I have this. I love this palette. I don't own any other Sephora palettes or any Sephora Pro palettes or anything like that, but if they perform anything like this, I will be looking into buying some in the future because I love this palette. So next up, I have a couple of Huda Beauty palettes. I have the Huda Beauty Electric Obsessions palette. Really like this palette. Super cute, very nice if you're into color. This is a really pretty palette to own. I've used this palette quite a bit, as you can see. This is such a pretty palette to have, and Huda Beauty is known for having these cute little mini palettes like this. I believe they only run you about $25 to $27, and they are high performing and beautiful palettes. The next palette I have up from Huda Beauty, this is my absolute favorite palette from Huda Beauty. Again, this is also the only other Huda Beauty palette that I own, so I can't really talk too much about the other palettes, but I love this palette. It is so gorgeous. This is the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. I mean, get into these shades. This is a chocolate girl's dream. These are all of the shades that we love. This palette is so gorgeous. I would definitely recommend this for beginners. It just has everything that you need, and it gives you beautiful, like this shade Twilight right here, y'all. I cannot get over this shade. It just has beautiful reflex in it. I'm definitely gonna make a point to use this palette more often on my channel. Y'all know for a moment in time, Huda Beauty was kind of canceled. So next up, we have Violet Voss. Now, I'm not very experienced with Violet Voss. Actually, the 2 palettes that I have here, I got in my BoxyCharm, and I will say I am a fan. First up, I have the Violet Voss Essentials palette. Just a very beautiful basic palette. Very nice for beginners and people that like more simpler looks. Like they say, it's just essentials. It just gives you the bare basic shades that you need to create, you know, basic everyday eye looks, and I think that is exactly what they captured in this palette, and these colors are absolutely gorgeous. Next up, I have the Violet Voss Essentials 2 palette. This one has a little bit more color in it, a little more fun, but it still also has those basic shades that you need. This entire top row and even this copper shade down here at the bottom are very much beginner friendly shades. This palette is gorgeous. The shades blend beautifully together and they work extremely well together. I absolutely love this palette. All right, so next up we're moving on to Colourpop. I'm actually surprised. I didn't think I had that many Colourpop palettes, and I'm actually still kind of surprised. It's still not a lot in my opinion, but you know, y'all tell me. So first of all, I just have this Z palette here, and it just says it was all a dream. It's just a Colourpop Z palette, and this is where I keep a lot of my single Colourpop shadows. I don't use a ton of these, and I'm actually pretty sure a lot of these are dried out, so I'm not even sure how many of these I'll actually be able to use, but these are just some of my single Colourpop shadows. All right, they don't feel that dried out. Okay, I'll be using, I haven't used these in a very long time, but this is where I keep these shadows. These are actually all of the single shadows I own. I don't buy single shadows because I like to get bang for my buck, so that is why I invest a lot of my money into palettes, because it just gives you a wider variety of shades and stuff. But if you're a makeup artist, I completely understand the point of single shadows, and you know, maybe I'll buy more single shadows in the future, who knows. I have both palettes from the collab with Colourpop and Karen, aka I Love Sarahi. I don't know if y'all know Karen. I love Karen. She is just so, like, I consider her very relatable and just super warm, and she has a beautiful personality. I love Karen, y'all. Anyway, so I bought her Colourpop collab, and I have both of the palettes right here. So this one right here is the Cheeky palette. Very simple 4 shades, very beginner friendly. And this one is the Saucy palette. It gives you a little bit more color. You have some reds and stuff in here, and these are both of the palettes together. Beautiful, gorgeous palettes. I love them. I don't use them all that much just because, I don't know, if they're in the back of my drawer, I tend to not grab them all that much, so that is why I haven't. But these are absolutely gorgeous. I've definitely used them before. As you can tell, not that much, but I love them and I like them. I'm pretty sure these are no longer available on the Colourpop website because I don't think they keep their collab palettes up for very long, and this is like years old, but you know. Next up from Colourpop, I have the Kathleen Lights Dream Street palette. This is also a very beautiful palette. Again, I would also consider this palette beginner friendly just because it has your basic transition shades. You have a couple of pops of color just for some fun, but for the most part, I would consider this a very beginner friendly palette. It is gorgeous. Again, I don't know that this is available on Colourpop anymore because this is an older collaboration, but I mean, get into it. I've used this palette a couple of times on my channel. It's so funny because I actually don't follow Kathleen Lights here on YouTube, but I just had to grab this palette because I thought it was so pretty. I'm not really a follower of hers, but I heard she's super sweet, and girl, I got your palette and I love it. Next up, I have the All I See Is Magic palette. This is actually very similar to the Kathleen Lights Dream Street palette. You just have a few more shades in this palette. I have not used this palette very much. I want to say I've actually used this palette like one time, but it is so pretty. These colors just like call my name and scream to me. I love colors like this. Hi, it's me. I am here interrupting because at this point, y'all, I'm about to have a little mini breakdown, so please excuse me while I go through this process. Also, in a few more minutes, the power cuts off on me, so you know, it was a really trying day. Enjoy. Well, y'all, I've been talking for 30 minutes and my microphone wasn't on. I am low-key debating just putting up the footage with my microphone sounding shitty because I don't think y'all understand how many palettes I just went through in 30 minutes. It's just like, I try. I'm about to cry. I'm about to cry, y'all, for real. I swear to God. I be trying to be on my game, okay? Camera. Lights. I readjusted the lights. I'm already nervous about my footage because I changed my settings for my vacation, so I'm not sure that my camera even looks the same. I feel like my movements are a little bit too fast. I can't worry about that until after I actually edit the footage, so that's another issue. Then I was talking for 30 minutes and the microphone wasn't on. I'm constantly like dealing with these issues. I swear y'all, I don't do this stuff on purpose. It's really like, I'm really like about to cry. On top of that, I'm super hungry. Like, I was trying to film this quickly so I could film my mukbang afterwards, because when I film my mukbang, I have to change my lens, I'm sitting back there on the couch. It's a whole different setup. So I'm like, you know what, bitch? Go ahead and film the palette video and get it out the way and then eat your sushi. But they don't want me to eat. They don't want me to eat. You know what? You know the fuck what? Whatever. Let's go ahead. I'm starting over. I'm not starting over, but I'm starting where I think I left off. I think I was at Colourpop. Finally is my absolute favorite collab palette by Colourpop. This is the Perception palette by Colourpop and Makeup Shayla. Y'all, I spent a good amount of time while my microphone was off talking about this palette, but I'm gonna keep it cute and sweet. This is my go-to, ignore the lashes. This is my go-to travel palette. I cannot travel without this palette. If I had to take only one palette when I travel, which I usually do, this is the palette I take. It just has everything you need, especially if you have melanin in your skin. This is a super brown girl friendly palette. I mean, if y'all don't know Makeup Shayla, she's a woman of color. She put a lot of thought into this palette creating these shades. These 4 shades right here are beautiful, perfect transition shades for women of color. Not a shade in this palette is ashy. It's just an absolutely gorgeous palette. And you have all these beautiful pops of color in here. Like, I feel like this palette is no longer available on the website. I think I looked it up a couple of weeks ago when I talked about this palette. I will, of course, look into it. And if the palette's available, I'll put the link in the description box down below. But, y'all, oh my gosh, this palette was gorgeous. And I believe this was super affordable. I think it was only like $25, $27, something like that. I probably shouldn't travel with it because this is the only one that I have and they don't have it anymore. So, moving on, we have all of my Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. Y'all might be, all right, never mind. I might cut some of this out because I think I might be repeating myself because I don't know if I talked about some of these already or not. 30 minutes of footage and I don't have 30 minutes to go back and look at it. So I'm on a time crunch, y'all. I'm trying to make it to my friend Coco Butter Curls. I'll put her channel in the description box down below. I'm trying to make it to Coco's live at 7:30 and it is 6:23 right now. And I still have to film a mukbang. I'm not going to make the mukbang. So I'm gonna do my Anastasia palettes, the ones that I like the most to the least. I have to reorder them because I already talked about these motherfuckers. So my number 1 absolute favorite Anastasia Beverly Hills palette is the Soft Glam palette. This palette means so much to me. I love this palette so much. As y'all can tell, I've hit pan on 1 and going on 2 of these shades. This palette is just everything to me. It just has everything that I need. This is an absolute amazing beginner palette. If you're looking for things to, if you're a beginner, you're looking for you know, what I would call a perfect palette, it would be this one. I absolutely love the Soft Glam palette. Give y'all a little close up here. Absolutely love this palette, y'all. I will go on about this forever, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. My number 2, and when I say number 2, I mean it's like, they are actually at the very top together. It is the Anastasia Beverly Hills and Jackie Aina palette. I mean, y'all, come on. This is a chocolate girl's dream. If you have any kind of melanin in you, I highly recommend that you get this palette. This palette is no ashy. This palette is super blendable. This palette has shades that are just so beautiful. This Lituation Sponsored and Zam are my absolute 3 favorite shades out of this palette. It's just an absolutely gorgeous palette. Jackie did such an amazing job when she created this, and it's amazing, y'all. My 3rd favorite palette is the collaboration with Amrezy. If y'all don't know Amra, she slays the game on Instagram. She's so beautiful and she has just such a real personality. I'm actually wearing this palette today. I used this palette today when I filmed my Get Ready With Me, my Mellow Makeup Monday, aka also filmed during my live, my Makeup and Mimosas. Love this palette. Love Amra. I will agree with what most people say about this palette is that the shades OG and New Yorker are super similar, and they probably could have been replaced. In my opinion, they probably could have taken out OG. I prefer New Yorker. It's a little bit more warmer for my liking, but of course I used both of them, and I used both of them today, so I don't know what that says. My next favorite is the Prism palette. I feel like this palette is so slept on. Not a lot of people talk about this palette enough. I feel like this is the most slept on Anastasia Beverly Hills palette in my opinion. I actually used this palette when I did my 2 Girls 1 Palette collaboration with Desi. Using this palette again when I did that collab, I was like, Why don't I use this palette more often? It is so slept on. The shades in here are so beautiful. This is such a gorgeous, gorgeous palette. I don't know why it doesn't get the love that it deserves, but it absolutely deserves more love than it gets, and I'm definitely going to make a point to use this palette more often on my channel. I absolutely love this palette. Now we have the OG, the Modern Renaissance palette. Y'all know everybody had this palette back in the day. This was actually among the first of the higher end palettes that I bought. Clearly I didn't use it all that much. I was new to makeup and I was low-key scared to use this palette. This is just an OG. You have to have this palette in your collection. I mean, come on. It's gorgeous. The colors are super beautiful. I don't have anything bad to say about this palette. It's absolutely gorgeous. All right, next up we have a controversial palette. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. Y'all know this palette was much talked about. I actually didn't get this palette until months and months later. I actually believe I got this palette like half off. Probably one of the palettes that has been talked about in a negative light the most by Anastasia. If I can remember correctly, the complaints that I heard a lot were people were saying that the colors were patchy, they didn't blend right, some of them didn't show up. Did I have those issues with this palette? I did. With a couple of the shades, honestly. I actually love this color story so much. It is very much retro. It's very much 60s vibes and tees. I just wish the performance of the palette was a lot better because this color story is insane. I love the retro-ness of it. Color blocking tees. I love it. I just wish it performed a little better. All right, so next up I have three ABH Norvina palettes to talk about. So this is the ABH Norvina Volume 1 palette. It is absolutely beautiful and it comes with a huge mirror. This palette is so gorgeous, and I think that if you have this palette, you don't need the ABH Norvina palette. I know that sounds confusing, so I will put a picture of the ABH Norvina. I mean the one that like looks like this, the purple one. I just feel like if you have any combinations of any of the Norvina collection palettes that I'm about to mention, you don't need the ABH Norvina palette. I feel like between these palettes that I own, I already have all those shades. So this is the ABH Norvina Volume 1 palette. Super gorgeous. I've used this palette once on my channel and I plan on using it a lot more. I actually just got these a couple of months ago. They were on sale at Sephora for half off, so baby please. I think originally they're $60 and I got them all for like $30, and I even got one for like 20 something. So here's the tea, y'all. Just hold out. Eventually all these expensive ass palettes will be on sale and you can get them. Next up I have the ABH Norvina Collection Volume 2. I just think this is so pretty. Out of the three, I think the packaging on this is so beautiful. I can't get over it. Super pretty. You definitely have more blues and greens in this one. But I don't think I've used this palette at all. Yeah, no. I haven't used this palette at all. So please look out for this in a future video. I do plan to use it. Finally, I have the ABH Norvina Volume 3. I think this one might be my favorite out of the three. I just think because the colors are just so bright and vibrant, it just calls to me on a different level. I think I've only dipped into a couple of shades on this palette, so look out for this also in a future video. Y'all, it's thundering and lightning outside. I hope it doesn't rain like this tomorrow. I gotta go to a seafood boil. Baby, I don't want no crab legs. All right, next up I have also two palettes that I got in my BoxyCharm. This is Pur Cosmetics. I don't own anything I think by Pur Cosmetics. I've only been introduced to them through BoxyCharm, and I mean I've always known about Pur Cosmetics. I just never went out and bought anything. I didn't really find the need to, but these palettes are super gorgeous. So the first one is the Pur Cosmetics Festival palette. This is the first one. Such a fun palette, very beautiful colors. Next up I have the Pur Cosmetics Festival 2 palette. Also very pretty. They have a slight chocolatey smell to the palettes, which I actually really like. It's not annoying or disgusting or anything like that. I did find both of these palettes to be very easy to blend, very easy to work with, very pretty, high performing palettes. Next up is one of my absolute favorite palettes. This is the Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes palette. This is one of my go-to palettes. I also take this when I travel sometimes. It's just an all matte palette and it has a big old mirror. And it smells like peaches, and y'all, I think I've had this palette for like 3 years and it still smells like peaches. Probably even longer than 3 years. And I know it doesn't look like it, but I've actually used this palette a lot. I don't own really anything else from Too Faced. I don't really like Too Faced, but I love this palette. Next, I have the Be Perfect Carnival palette. This is a collaboration with Stacey MUA. I know her from Instagram. I was actually on a wait list for this palette. This palette was so popular about a year or two ago. I'm so happy that I have it. You have all these beautiful shades. They are extremely high performing, highly pigmented, and you have 2 highlighters in the palette, and you get a big old mirror. Next up is another palette that I got from the UK. I got this off of Beauty Bay. This is the Me, Myself, and Mama Mitchell palette. Y'all know I've talked about this palette a lot on my channel. I absolutely love this palette. It comes with a magnetic mirror that you can take out, and it's a mirror on both sides, and it just sticks in like a magnet. Super convenient. And y'all look at these colors. These pans are huge, and they are very, very high performing, extremely pigmented palette. And I just knew that when he was coming out with a palette, I had to have it. And I'm so happy that I have this. This is actually one of my absolute favorite palettes. And y'all, if y'all want me to do a separate top 10 video for my palettes, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to do that. All right, I'm sorry if the angle is different. I had to change my camera battery. A beach being talking, okay? And I'm sorry if y'all can hear the rain. It is coming down outside, but I think my microphone is good enough to where it blocks it out. Okay, let's move on. So the first one I have here is the Pinky Rose Bright Lights palette. Look how pretty this palette is. I would not put this as a beginner friendly palette because it is just so bright and vibrant. You have a lot of neons and pastels in here. I knew I was not going to be a girl that was afraid of color when it came to makeup, so I just knew I had to have this palette in my collection. I'm so happy that I do. Next up, we have this palette by The Balm. This is the Nude Dude palette. Y'all, I'm gonna be straight up honest with y'all. I've never used this palette before, and the only reason I bought it is because there's like nude dudes in here. I don't know if y'all, all right, let me see if I can put it where y'all can see it. Oop, the brush just fell. Cool. But it's just guys. Their body parts are being covered up by the eyeshadow, like their butts and peens and stuff. I will try to use this palette soon on my channel. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it's giving me ashy tease, but we will see. I might try to adjust my lights just a little bit. All right, is that better? I think that's a little bit better. Let me show this palette again. Next up, I love this palette so much. This is the NYX Ultimate Utopia palette. I can't say enough good things about this palette. I am obsessed with this color story. I mean, get into it. Y'all, this palette is so gorgeous. I think this palette is actually only $35, but I do know that it's constantly always out of stock. So if you can, please get your hands on this palette. I have used this at least 4 times on my channel. I love this palette. It's just, this is one of those palettes that every time I look at it, I am cool. Oh my god. You gotta be kidding me right now. Alright, so the power went out. We had a little bit of a power surge. We had a little bit of a power surge because of the rain. Alright, y'all. Good lord. What was I saying, y'all? I don't know if the mukbang gonna get filmed, bruh. Dead ass. I think I was saying every time I look at this palette, I get inspired. I don't usually always have that with my palettes, so I'm sorry, y'all. What does this mean? My camera's flashing up gang signs and I don't know what they're talking about. What does that mean? I get so inspired to do different looks, hence why I've used this palette so many times on my channel. It's just so beautiful. What is that? I love this palette. Cool. I can't believe this shit. Alright, I'm coming to you to let you know that this is part 1 of this video. The power keeps going out and I cannot film. So, I guess I'll see y'all tomorrow with part 2 of this makeup palette collection. Bye. I'm hungry and I'm mad and I need to eat, so bye. Alright, y'all, I am back. It is the next day. I'm sorry if the lighting and the camera quality looks a little bit different. This is my podcast setup, so I use a different lens and all that kind of stuff. I just got finished filming my podcast and y'all, I'm too lazy to change all the lights and the lens and all that kind of stuff, so we here. All right, let's continue on with the video. All right, so next up I have Colored Rain. Y'all know Colored Rain is a black owned company and this is the Queen of Hearts palette. So pretty. Look at these colors, y'all. Another palette that I would consider beginner friendly. This was again another one of the first high-end palettes that I bought, and I love this palette so much. Next up by Color Rain, I have the Vivid Pigments and Shadows palette. I haven't used this yet. I plan on using it very soon. I have been trying to get this palette for a while now, and I got lucky enough to catch it on sale, so really excited to use this palette. I believe my sister's used it and she said it's really nice. Next up I have BH Cosmetics, and this is actually the absolute first eyeshadow palette I ever bought. This is the BH Cosmetics 120 color eyeshadow palette. I think I got this off of Amazon, but y'all, I've had this palette for a very long time and I barely even used it. So you have this. I knew it lifted up. So it lifts up and there's more shadows. So this is the entire palette. This comes out and this is at the bottom. I just knew, like, as a beginner, I wanted a palette that has pretty much every single eyeshadow that I would ever need. I thought that this would be the only palette I ever needed in my life, but as y'all can see, I had a lot more. I actually might bust this bad boy out soon. I haven't used this in years, so I might use this palette. But yeah, this is the BH Cosmetics 120 color eyeshadow palette. And then next up I have the Take Me Back to Brazil palette. This is also BH Cosmetics. Really bright and vibrant palette. I've used this a few times. Now the quality isn't the best on this palette. I don't get a ton of pigmentation from this palette. It's not my favorite palette, but it's not the worst either. All right, so moving on to the palettes that I own the most of. These are Juvia's Place. I'm just gonna sit these right here. I don't know if I've used all of these, so let's find out. So this is the Saharan 2 palette. I've definitely used this palette quite a bit. I really like this palette. Now, a lot of the Juvia's, I don't think any of my Juvia's Place palettes have mirrors. That is okay because Juvia's Place is so affordable and so high performing that I will forego the mirror for the quality and the price of these palettes. I highly recommend anybody get Juvia's Place if you're looking to get the best bang for your buck. Next up is the Zulu palette. I've definitely used this palette on my channel as well. Very pretty palette. Then we have the Warrior 3 palette. I have not used this palette yet. I actually just got this palette recently. I don't know if y'all remember, but I did a giveaway and they sold 3 palettes like this for $25, and 2 of mine came damaged and they actually replaced them for me very quickly. No fuss, no nothing. So I have yet to use this palette, but I'm very excited. Super pretty. Then I have the original Saharan palette. I've used this maybe a handful of times, but it's very pretty, very pigmented. Then I have the Nubian palette. I believe my sister actually got this for me. This was, again, another one of the first palettes that I got when I was just getting into makeup. I think they still sell this palette, and it's just, you know, your classic everyday shadows. If you're an everyday type of a girl and you're looking for, you know, quick, easy palette to get, this one is amazing, and I believe it's only like $10. The Masquerade mini palette. It has the exact same shades, I believe, as the original Masquerade. It's just a mini size, which I prefer just for storage purposes. Very beautiful palette. I use this in a 2 Girls 1 palette video. Another one of my absolute favorite palettes by them. This is the Warrior 2 palette. I mean, y'all, I am obsessed with this palette. It's all matte palette and these shades are just so pretty. Whew, I love this palette so much. I mean, the shades are just so beautiful. I can't. No, I can't. Then we have the Festival palette. I've definitely used this palette once or twice. Very nice palette. Then I have the Warrior palette. I don't think I've used this. It looks like I have though, but I don't remember using it. Maybe I used a couple of shadows. I can't really remember, but the Warrior palette, very pretty. This is also a really nice basic eyeshadow palette to have. Then I have the Nubian 2 palette. I've only used this palette one time. I did this for a 2 Girls 1 palette, and that is the only time I've used this, but I really liked it. And finally, I have the Magic palette. This is such a unique palette. This gold up here I've used a ton. It is so beautiful. I can't get over this gold shade. I think they actually have it in a few of their palettes, but I love that gold. Very pretty palette, but I would not put this as a beginner friendly palette. The colors are just so unique. I don't really know that a beginner would really know what to do with a lot of these shades. I really sometimes don't even know what to do with this palette alone. If I had to use this palette by itself, I kind of struggle myself. So that is why I'm saying this is probably not a beginner palette, but this palette is giant, y'all. Very beautiful. Finally. All right, so Morphe. First up, I have the Artistry palette. I got this during Pride last year. I gave a very honest review of this palette. I did not love this palette. Unfortunately, the colors were very patchy. They didn't really show up that much on my skin. I had a little bit of difficulty using this palette. I'm gonna try to keep using it because there's a few shades that I didn't use when I first used this palette. So I will be busting this out more to give it more of to give it another shot because I didn't like it the first time I used it. So I do like that it comes with a mirror and the colors on here are absolutely gorgeous. I hope I can get this palette to work because it is such a pretty palette. A lot of these shimmers in here are absolutely beautiful and the names of these shades are just so nice. You have Liberation, Stonewall, Rise Up, Healing, Activism, Peace, just beautiful. Harmony, Truth, Sexuality, Love Wins, Culture, Pride, Heart, just gorgeous names. Ooh. Okay, that black showed up. Okay, baby. All right. Y'all ain't playing. Y'all, I have the OG. I know I keep saying this is one of the first palettes I got, but I'm going to say like there's about 5 or 6 palettes that I just had to have when I first started in makeup, and this was one of them. This is the Morphe 35O palette. Everybody and their mama talked about this palette. This palette was everything. This was the talk of the town, okay? I just had to have this palette, and this palette still holds up. This is a gorgeous palette, beginner friendly, very much so. I actually don't know if they sell this palette anymore, but if they do, you should get it. Next up, I have the Morphe 35G Bronze Goals palette. This is very similar to the 35O palette, but it's a little more bronzy. I'm gonna actually put these up next to each other so y'all can see them side by side. I feel like this is like their replacement for the 35O palette because I don't know that they have this one anymore. So if they don't, I highly recommend this palette. As you can see, I've definitely used this palette quite a few times. I really like this palette. It's very beautiful. For whatever reason, when this palette came out, it didn't get a ton of hype, and I don't know why. This palette is so slept on, I feel like. The pigments are beautiful. They blend beautifully. I know Morphe is very hit or miss for a lot of people, and it is for me too, but this palette is amazing. Next up, I have a very dirty, very dirty OG Jaclyn Hill palette. This is the Jaclyn Hill Volume 1 palette. This baby has been beat up, as you can see. I've put this palette to work. It's definitely also pretty dirty on the inside. I don't know if y'all can really see, but this palette is messy. I've used this palette a lot. I love this palette. This is also one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes. The colors are so beautiful. They blend beautifully. Just an amazing palette. I highly recommend this palette, y'all. I love this palette. Then I have the Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 palette. I've only used this once, but I've loved it when I used it. Very pretty palette. I did not rush out to get it when it first came out because for whatever reason, the colors or the color story just didn't really call out to me. I'm like, okay, I have something like that. I have something like that. But if these are your colors and you like shades like this, I highly recommend getting this palette. It performs beautifully. I caught it on sale. I think I got it for like $20 or maybe even less than that. So just look out for sales. If Morphe's having a sale, grab this palette, y'all, because it's great. Finally, I have the Morphe James Charles palette. And I still have my shade sheet. Professional woman over here. I mean, what can I say about this palette that hasn't already been said? This palette has every single shade you need. If you are like, okay, you named all these palettes, which one should I get? If I just want to cover everything and I want a high performing palette, this is the one you should get. Palette is just everything, y'all. It's beautiful, amazing. I can't say enough about this palette. And an honorable mention, I have the mini James Charles palette. So those, I'm trying to look around because I'm like, is that it? Did I get everybody? So I have 2 more palettes to mention. One is the BH Cosmetics Carly Bible palette, which I lent to my sister and now I can't find it. And then one more that I mentioned at the very end of the video. So that brings the total to 55. Thank you. Hey, so it's me cutting in here. I forgot one more palette, y'all. Forgot it because it's on my wall, but I have the Sephora Moschino the Bear palette. Excuse the lighting, I just jumped on here to show y'all this, and I'm trying to do this one-handed. Here we go. So I have this palette. I'm going to put up a picture next to this so you can actually see the real colors on the screen here, but I have this palette also. I've only used it once. I don't know why I don't use it more. Again, I plan on using it more. And I have another one that I'm saving for a giveaway. So that's one more palette. Let's hope I don't find any more because I'm about to edit this video right now. Bye. Those are all of my eyeshadow palettes. What do you think of my palette collection? Are you proud of me? Do you have any palettes that you own that you think I need? Y'all know I love to shop, all right? Yeah, so let me know if you have any palette suggestions, any palettes that you think I would like. I'm definitely here for it. I have my eye on a couple more palettes. I always have my eye on palettes, y'all. I just love to have things. I'm that kind of person. I just like to have it in my possession. Like a lot of these I haven't even used. I'm happy that I have them, okay? Do I have as many palettes as y'all thought I had, or do I have less than? I'm gonna be honest, I thought I had more palettes. If you like this video, if you had a good time, please give me a thumbs up. Comment down below. I talk back. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I go live every other Sunday for makeup and mimosas. I will put the date of my next live at the top of the screen here. Please join me, grab yourself a drink, and come chat with me. It's fun. Sometimes I do my makeup, sometimes I just talk about makeup. It's a lot of fun, but you know, we talk about other things too, y'all. It gets a little spicy and sexy over there. I like to ask sex questions, okay? If you're interested in reality TV and reality TV show recaps, please follow my other channel, Now We Said It. It will be linked in the description box down below. Thank you so much, y'all, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.